I'm not sure what is actually going on, but it definitely isn't America first.
How many kilos of drugs were on this boat? Which cartel are they operating with?
I'm sure that he's checking his food pretty carefully.
Yesterday, 6 dead in a boat strike. Not diplomacy, but kinetic action. Have a look at this. Boom.
But to even toy with regime change is disastrous and the opposite of America first.
Trump administration's shock and awe diplomacy rolls on this week, and tonight, even more high drama. Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth is making an unexpected stop in Britain, having to emergency landing with a cracked windscreen. He'd been in Brussels, giving Trump's toughest warning yet to Putin: stop meddling in Ukraine or face the consequences. Meanwhile, US firepower has been flashing off the coast of Venezuela. This time, it's Trump's war on the narco-terrorists. Trump's made the plan very clear: finish the job. Yesterday, 6 dead in a boat strike. Not diplomacy, but kinetic action. Have a look at this. Boom. And 1 month ago, another strike. Boom. And 6 weeks ago, yet more action. You guessed it. Here we go. Boom. Crush the cartels, deny Iran, Russia and China a foothold, and if needed, take out Venezuela's Maduro. In a moment, we'll hear from Defence Priorities Foundation's Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis on how America might take down that rogue regime. But first, I'm joined by Katarina Szulc, the host of the Borderlands podcast, who's going to fill us in with exactly what's going on. Christina, you've covered Latin America. You know what's going on with these narco-terrorists. What's Trump's plan, and is it going to escalate, do you feel, from taking out these boats?
It's definitely going to escalate, because today we just found out in a New York Times report that the CIA is now conducting covert operations in Venezuela and the Southern Caribbean. Now, this is not something new. We have seen before the CIA working either bilaterally or independently in Latin and Central America when it comes to targeting the narcos, the drug cartels. We've even been seeing this over the last couple of months in Mexico, particularly transferring fugitives from Mexico into the U.S. But this is a little bit different in Venezuela, because we're seeing high-level military action. And truth be told, we're not getting a ton of information on who is being targeted in those strikes. Okay, we know that they're narco boats, and they allegedly are carrying meth and fentanyl from Venezuela and other Central American countries into Mexico to then be distributed across the United States. But we're not getting names of who these individuals are. And the reason I bring this up is because, of course, I have reported on this extensively, from high level to the lowest level of narcos or foreign terrorists. And we've seen names in press releases, on the OFAC press releases, you name it, no matter who it is, okay? A Mexican national who's trafficking arms from El Paso into Juarez, Mexico, we get their full name. Here, we're not hearing any names of, I think it's around 27 people who have been killed already.
27 killed, yes, so far. Could it be that they don't know the names of these people? And the fact is that we're going to discuss the legality of it all in a moment, is these boats are being identified purely on what they're up to rather than who's on them. And are they confident that these actually are narco boats, as there's been some suggestion that one of them was a fishing boat?
See, that's where I have a bit of an issue, because I think that when we're targeting these narco-terrorists, there are a lot of people who operate side by side with them, okay? And let's say, in an ideal world, that these boats are all narco vessels, okay, take them out. But it's unclear, and we're not being given this information as to, okay, how many kilos of drugs were on this boat? Which cartel are they operating with? Which part of Mexico were they destined to, in order to identify which cartel is distributing these drugs? And I'm sure that if this administration is confident about who they're attacking and that these boats are narco vessels, they would have all those answers for us. I mean, this is what I'm focused on every single day of my life, and I'm given this information 90% of the time. This is one of the few times where it I don't see any of it. I'm not being given any of it.
Where do you think this goes next? Obviously, you referenced those reports we're hearing today of an escalation. There's a $50 million bounty for the capture of Maduro. Donald Trump is saying, finish the job. What do you think finish the job looks like, and how?
I think finish the job means an increase in these strikes. I think we're going to see, I mean, there's already 10,000 troops deployed to this region. And I think this means we may see full-on combat. This is going to be that boots on the ground operation that a lot of us were waiting for when these cartels were designated FTOs in January. And I think until the Trump administration can show the public that they have made some sort of tangible dent in narco trafficking from Latin America into the United States, they won't stop at anything.
It feels like Venezuela, kind of see the direction of travel this is going. Can you put any flesh on the bones of this alleged offer by the Venezuelan government to give the US a majority stake in their oil if they call off the dogs?
I don't think that's enough for this administration. There's so many there are so many things that they're interested in here, and sure, oil is certainly always one of them. But I think more than anything, and what we've seen particularly with this administration since January, is that they want to make a difference and a visceral difference within the public perception of how they deal with the war on drugs. And this is kind of the first time in history where we are seeing very transparent, to a degree, operations taking place outside of the United States in terms of tackling the war on drugs, and doing it in a way where other international governments, albeit Venezuela or Mexico, are simply not fully involved in these U.S. ops.
Katarina Szulc of the Borderlands podcast. Come back and tell us how it goes when inevitably it seems this does escalate. Thank you for joining us tonight. Now, in the studio, Adrian's still with me, but Colonel Davis for the Deep Dive, the Daniel Davis Deep Dive show on YouTube. Have I got that right?
You do, yes, thank you.
I mean, this isn't very America first, is it? I mean, regime change in South America. I mean, this is back to the 70s, right?
I don't know what it's back to. I'm not sure what is actually going on, but it definitely isn't America first, because this has nothing to do with American national interest. It doesn't have anything to do with American security, because all this is, frankly, is for show. I mean, you have all these great videos, they're really dramatic, etc., but we have no earthly idea, as your previous guest just said. Yeah. Who are these people? Are they actually narco-terrorists? I mean, we don't even know. Other than the claim, we don't have any knowledge at all. And these things are so small, these just individual small boats. That's not the way most of the drugs are even moved around. A lot of it in the air, a lot of it through other places. There's no evidence this is actually stopping the drugs at all. It's just flashy TV. Colonel, you've called out the Pentagon over your career in the past. Are you saying this is for show for the American public or a show of force for Maduro? Oh, definitely for the American public. Now, I'm sure that Maduro has definitely got his interest because he knows he could be on the receiving end of one of those bombs, but it's not accomplishing anything except for making the Trump administration look tough to the American people. And do you agree with the previous guest there, Katarina, who said this is going to escalate? This is going to twofold. Is this going to escalate, and should this escalate? Well, I have real concerns that it may escalate, because you can't go messing with the narco, all the cartels, and think they're going to do nothing. I mean, they have been showing pretty conclusively with governments throughout the region that if they get pushed hard enough, they will push back, and in ways that you don't like, and in really ugly ways and violent ways. And I fear that we may just be, poking a dragon here and getting fire back in our own face in ways that we may not like. And again, it may escalate the issue with drugs, not tamp it down. America's got into trouble in South America for, in the past. In some very high-profile cases. Do you think this could be a major strategic mistake by the president? And do you think he really realizes that? I definitely don't think he realizes it. I think that he is kind of thinking that everything he touches, I think he perceives himself as the Midas touch, and he tells everybody he's solved 7 wars, now 8, etc. This whole issue with the Gaza thing in the Middle East, and he solved that. Now he's trying to solve the Russia-Ukraine war, and now he's doing this stuff here. And I think all we're doing is exploding all the danger and the risk, but and I don't see any fundamental possibility of this actually accomplishing anything good for the American people. I imagine in the Pentagon there's
clucking lawyers, right? That kind of feel this is probably, not the most legally watertight operation the Americans have conducted.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of things in that category.
Yeah.
But there's no legality to this whatsoever. They just want to do it. They're doing it. I mean, by all rights, if you think that there's, narco-terrorism going on, that there's drugs, then there are international laws that you interdict them. If you have this intelligence that can tell you so precisely what these people are doing and where it's going, then you interdict them. You bring in vessels that can stop them. You capture them. Then you actually say, all right, we're going to get intelligence from these guys. Where did you come from? Where is this going? That's what you do if you actually want to stop the drug trade. But if all you do is blow it up and nobody knows who this stuff is, there's no proof whatsoever this is stopping anybody. It looks more like it's just for show.
There's reporting today that Maduro is very firmly in the American government's sights now. There's a $50 million bounty already. Playing devil's advocate, and they are going for regime change. Colonel, how would they do it? What scale of intervention would you need, do you reckon, in Venezuela to topple what looks like a pretty shaky regime down there?
Yeah, I don't know how shaky it is, though. I mean, we tried this in the first Trump administration with Juan Guaido and all that, and all these huge protests that were going on, and we tried to support the opposition, and that fell flat. We ended up being humiliated and didn't get it done. Now it seems like we're trying again. Now then, with this peace prize going to this opposition leader, it seems like we're trying to ingratiate ourselves with her.
Well, she seems pretty keen on an intervention.
Oh, of course, just like Guaido was before that. Yeah, so of course they want that. They want to use the U.S. military to accomplish what they can't do on the ground, and that is regime change to get Maduro out of there. And if you are even thinking about doing some of that, you've got to have a lot more military power than what we've got in the region right there. Otherwise, all you're doing is just stirring up a hornet's nest, and you're not going to accomplish the goal anyway.
What would you do, though? I mean, it's obviously clearly a menace and a threat, and you could make the argument that it is America first because these drugs are actually affecting, domestic Americans. What would you do?
No, if I'm doing America first, I am going to do what I can to stop the flow of drugs coming into the United States. I'm going to do something to get after the demand side of that. Why do we have such a demand for it? That's where you can actually do something here. But to even toy with regime change is disastrous and the opposite of America first, because it could get you sucked into yet another regime change war that ends up disastrously. So I would not do it at all.
What if, though, you, me, a couple of guys, we get that $50 million from the State Department. Do you reckon we could get in and out of Venezuela, kidnap Maduro, get him to the United States, claim the money, and still have any change left over from that $50 million? Surely there's people having this exact same conversation across America. Seems like the perfect plan, right?
Well, it's really good on paper. But when you actually try to do it on the ground, it'll be a little bit different of a story, because if there's one thing, however corrupt Maduro is, he's pretty good at his self-defense and his security apparatus.
He's hiding somewhere there. Do you reckon people will try and have a crack at that? I mean, that's why you put a bounty of that.
That's the reason why you do it. Yeah, I'm sure there would be. I'm sure that he's checking his food pretty carefully, and his security guard.
Well, it's 50 million. It's 50 million alive. So 50 million dead, I think, would be a little easier. Adrian, are you in? Are you coming on this adventure?
Listen, I'm in. I'm fully in. I'll just say, I think it's very interesting, open conversation here. I think having him is great to understand this. There's a lot that we don't know. I've always said, listen, let's trust Trump. Let's see this through. He's had that stance on drugs. The man's never had a sip of alcohol. He runs on 4 hours of sleep, and he's fueled by Diet Coke.
When does he sleep? That's always.
It doesn't. Not much. Not much.
So, but do you think you're in touch? You have the finger on the pulse of the MAGA world, the MAGA base. This is not what MAGA voters wanted, is it? And yet another regime change potential operation and another costly long forever war. This one even closer to America's back door.
Let's hope that there's a trick up his sleeve and it doesn't start anything too big, like he said, stirring the hornet's nest. Let's hope that's the case. I think, again, this is like a significant play for his war on drugs and his stances in that, and I think that he's trying to make moves here. But yeah, I mean, interesting to hear this conversation, so I appreciate that.
Colonel, I want to talk about Pete Hegseth. Obviously, leaving aside his little difficulties left him at RF Millfield today with a broken plane, he's generating a lot of heat from Pentagon reporters for this new rule that they won't be able to actively solicit information from military officials that hasn't been formally cleared. That strikes me as an almost impossible ask, and completely in breach of the First Amendment.
Well, 100%. And I was really surprised to see that even Fox News has pushed back on that. They said, we will not sign that, along with CNN, NBC, and several others. So it's one of the rare times you see both right and left media get together on this and push back on something. Yeah, I think it's a terrible idea, and I don't know why they would have wanted to do that or why they think they can get away with it. Because basically what you're saying is you are no longer the free press. You will only report what we tell you, or you'll lose your credentials.
Yeah.
That was the big threat. And of course, nobody wants to lose their access to the Pentagon. But if you also don't have the freedom, then you have some real problems. So I don't think this is going to fly.
More broadly in the veterans community, in the military community, in the wider world at which you focus on, how is he rated, Pete Hesketh?
And the people that I've talked to, it's actually pretty bad. They think that it's kind of like a lower-ranking soldier that suddenly got in charge of all. He got to lecture all these generals, et cetera. That he's really good at demonstrative and speech making, but not really good at actually doing the job of the Secretary of Defense. He's not held in very high esteem.
And I don't suppose the generals want to go back on the bleep test quite yet. What did you make of the Secretary of changing the department to the Department of War? Is that?
Yeah, I think I was big time against that. I mean, that we're supposed to have our armed forces to defend our country, and that's the reason they called it that. And when you say that we need to be more offensive, which the president did, that kind of made me cringe a little bit because we're pretty offensive already. And when you try to say, hey, we want to go because we want to win wars, look, we didn't fail to win wars because of the name. It had nothing to do with it. It had to do with the fundamentals on the ground.
Colonel Davis, thank you for joining us. Fascinating chat there. Adrian as well, thank you for coming.